The sensor array lit up like a festival. Across 3 dozen screens, each one screaming warnings that made Rollos want to laugh. His claws drummed against the command console as he watched the primitive planet spin below, blue and green and utterly defenseless. 400 worlds had fallen to the Dominion coalition in the past century. Earth would be 401. Sir, their orbital platforms are activating, his tactical officer reported, mandibles clicking nervously. Ralpos did laugh. Then the coalition fleet stretched across space like a steel curtain, 7 species united in conquest, ships that could crack moons and boil atmospheres, and these humans thought their ancient satellites would matter. The intelligence reports said they barely had faster than light communications, let alone weapons. Let them activate whatever toys they want, Ralpos said. Send the standard ultimatum, unconditional surrender. Within 1 rotation or we begin harvesting operations with the population still on world. The message went out across all frequencies. Ralpos had given the speech so many times he could recite it in his sleep. Surrender your resources, your labor, your future. Join the coalition peacefully or be absorbed violently. The choice was always the same, and species always chose survival over extinction. Except the response that came back made his scales itch. A single transmission. Audio only in the dominant human language. His translator easily decoded. The voice was calm, almost bored. This is Earth Defense Command. Your fleet is in violation of our sovereign territory. You have 30 minutes to begin withdrawal procedures or we will remove you by force. Remove them. Ralpos felt his crest flush with amusement. Did they actually just threaten us? His bridge crew erupted in clicking, hissing laughter. The humans had no fleet. Their most advanced vessels were chemical propulsion cargo haulers that couldn't even reach their own outer planets in reasonable time. This was like an insect threatening a predator. Respond that we accept their surrender. Ralpos ordered, and prepare harvesting teams for immediate deployment. But the 30 minutes passed and nothing happened. No surrender, no begging, no desperate diplomatic channels opening up with offers of tribute, just silence from the blue planet and those useless orbital platforms still running active scans. Sir, detecting energy spikes, tactical reported multiple sources there coming from their moon. Ralpos leaned forward. The moon was supposedly uninhabited according to their surveys. Rocky, airless, worthless except for some scientific outposts the humans had abandoned decades ago. Then the moon's surface opened up. Bays that sensors had marked as natural craters suddenly revealed themselves as camouflaged launch facilities, hundreds of them. The night side of Luna lit up with engine fire as ships began streaming out. Vessels that looked wrong compared to human civilian craft, angular where they should be curved, bristling with weapons where they should be carrying cargo, moving with acceleration that should have turned any crew inside to paste. Get me combat analysis now, Rollos snapped, his amusement evaporating. Sir, those ships are registering thrusto ratios that exceed our own. Fighters, they're using some kind of inertial dampening system we can't identify. Weapon signatures show kinetic accelerators, nuclear warheads, and something else, something that's interfering with our sensors. The human fleet numbered in the thousands. They spread out in a formation that military computers immediately flagged as advanced pack. Hunting tactics, not the rigid battle. Lines of honorable warfare, but something fluid and predatory. Ralpos watched them come and felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Uncertainty. All ships raise shields and prepare to demonstrate superior firepower, he ordered. Target their lead elements and show them why the Coalition rules this galaxy. The first salvo from the Coalition fleet would have vaporized any conventional force plasma beams that could cut through reinforced hulls, missiles that tracked across millions of kilometers, energy weapons developed over millennia of warfare. The firepower that had conquered 400 worlds reached out to swat these upstart humans back to their primitive planet. But the human ships didn't try to tank the hits. They scattered like startled fish, moving in ways that broke every tactical doctrine. Ralpos knew their vessels twisted through space on vectors that should have been impossible, engines firing in sequences that violated basic physics. They dodged, weaved, and closed distance at speeds that made his targeting solutions worthless. And then they fired back. The first human weapons were laughably simple. Solid metal slugs accelerated to relativistic speeds, dumb hunks of iron and tungsten that any proper warship could avoid, except the humans fired thousands of them in overlapping patterns, creating kill zones that forced Coalition ships into predictable evasion patterns where the nuclear warheads were waiting shield impact. Multiple detonations, tactical screamed, were reading fusion yields in the gigaton range. Repeat, they're using crude nuclear weapons as proximity mines. 3 Coalition destroyers vanished. Overlapping fireballs, 5 more took critical damage as electromagnetic pulses fried their sensor arrays. The beautiful organized Coalition formation suddenly had holes in it, gaps that human ships poured through like water. Through cracks, return fire all batteries. Ralpos roared, show them what real weapons can do. But the humans weren't there anymore. They'd already moved, already shifted, already released another salvo of those primitive missiles that somehow kept finding Coalition holes. They fought like animals without honor or dignity, using every dirty trick and cheap advantage their limited technology allowed, and it was working. Ralpos watched his fleet lose cohesion as captains tried desperately to target enemies that refused to fight properly. The humans didn't care about honor or glory. They cared about winning, and they'd apparently spent decades figuring out how to kill ships far more advanced than their own. Sir, we've lost 32 ships. Tactical reported, voice shaking. The humans are targeting our capital vessels with concentrated strikes. They're ignoring our fighters and going straight for command infrastructure. 32 ships in less than an hour of combat against a species that wasn't supposed to have a military at all. Ralpos made the hardest decision of his career. All ships execute withdrawal pattern Delta. Fall back to Rally 7 and regroup. The Coalition fleet began its retreat, engines burning hot as they put distance between themselves and the human swarm. But the humans didn't pursue. They held formation around their planet. Weapons still hot, engines still ready, and across every frequency, every channel, every communications band, the Coalition used the same message repeated in that same calm board voice. This is Earth. Defense Command, your sovereignty. Warning remains in effect. Next time we Won't be so gentle, the Galactic Council. Chamber floated in neutral space. Structure older than most civilizations. Currently sitting within it, 12 species. Held permanent seats there. Representatives gathered around a circular table that had witnessed treaties, declarations, and judgments. For 3,000 years, today it would witness something none of them expected. Counselor Breath adjusted her ceremonial robes, her 4 eyes scanning the emergency session attendance. Every seat was filled. The gallery overflowed with observers from lesser species, all chattering about the unprecedented event. A pre-Kant world had repelled a coalition invasion fleet. Order, Breveth announced, her voice amplified across the chamber. This council convenes to address the incident at Sol 3, commonly designated Earth. Ralpos stood in the petitioner's circle, his scales still showing stress marks from the battle. He'd limped here with what remained of his once mighty fleet, demanding council intervention. Now he faced the beings who supposedly governed galactic law. Esteemed counselors, Ralpos began, his voice steady despite the humiliation burning in his gut. The coalition submits formal charges against the humans of Earth for violating natural order. They concealed advanced military technology while presenting themselves as primitive. They used deceptive practices and violated 17 statutes of honorable warfare. We request immediate sanctions and enforcement action. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Several counselors leaned forward with interest. The concept of a pre-Kant species hiding weapons was troubling, even to those who found the coalition distasteful. The humans were pre-Kanteller, Dravik said, his tentacles curling thoughtfully. By definition, they have no obligation to reveal their capabilities to anyone. What legal foundation supports your claim? They monitored our communications for decades without announcing themselves. Ralpos countered, they built weapons specifically designed to counter our technology. They prepared for war while pretending to be innocent. So they were smart, another counselor said dryly. Perhaps the coalition should have confirmed their intelligence before invading. Laughter scattered across the gallery. Ralpos felt his crest darken with rage. But before he could respond, the chamber doors opened. A human walked in. She was small compared to most species present, her skin that strange pale brown color. Humans came in, wearing a simple dark suit that looked absurdly formal compared to the elaborate robes and ceremonial gear around her. Her hair was pulled back severely, and her eyes were the color of Earth's sky. This is a closed council session, Breveth said, though uncertainty colored her tone. Humans have no standing here. Ambassador Diana Foster, representing the sovereign nation of Earth, the human, said calmly, placing a data chip on the council table. I believe you're discussing my people. We have every right to defend ourselves before judgment. Earth has no embassy, no contact status, no diplomatic recognition. Dravix protested. You can't simply walk in here and demand representation. Diana smiled, and it wasn't a friendly expression. You're absolutely right. We have no official status because you never contacted us. We're pre-contact. Remember, which makes the coalition's invasion a violation of 700 years of established council law. She activated the data chip. Holographic displays filled the chamber, showing coalition fleet movements, invasion patterns, and something else. Something that made several counselors recoil. These are recordings from worlds the Coalition has peacefully integrated over the past century, Diana continued. Civilian centers bombed, populations enslaved, resources stripped while inhabitants starved, and this council did nothing because those species had no voice here. The images kept rolling. Children fleeing bombardment, cities burning, beings in chains being loaded onto transport ships. The gallery fell silent as horror replaced curiosity. Where did you get these, Ralpos? Demanded, his voice cracking. From the people you conquered, Diana said. While you thought we were primitive and isolated, we were building networks, making friends, learning who to trust and who to fear. Your invasion wasn't unexpected, Commander. We've been waiting for you. Breath raised a hand, stopping the data display. These allegations are serious, but they don't address the charges against humanity. You concealed your capabilities. You attacked without warning. We gave 30 minutes warning, Diana corrected. More than the Coalition gave to any of their 400 conquered worlds, and we concealed nothing. We simply didn't announce ourselves to a galaxy that clearly operates on predatory hierarchy. Would you have told a pack of hunters that you're armed? The Council expects transparency from all species, Dravik said, though he sounded less certain now. Diana laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. Transparency? You want transparency? Fine. Earth has been monitoring galactic communication since 2045. We've watched the Coalition expand unchecked while this council debated procedure. We've seen species beg for intervention that never came. We've learned that in this galaxy, the strong devour the weak, and the council writes laws that protect the powerful. She leaned on the table, meeting each counselor's gaze in turn. So we made a choice. We would never be weak. We would never be someone's resource colony. We would prepare for the day someone decided Earth looked tasty. You dare judge this council, Brevith said, her feathers ruffling. I dare defend my species, Diana shot back. You want to sanction us for winning a fight we didn't start? Go ahead, but know this. Every species watching this proceeding will learn that the council punishes victims for surviving. They'll learn that your laws protect aggressors and condemn defenders, and they'll make the same choice we did. Silence fell across the chamber. The weight of her words settled on the counselors like a physical thing, because she was right. Every enslaved species in the gallery was listening. Every minor power was watching. The Coalition violated first contact protocols. Diana continued, her voice softer now. They invaded a sovereign world without provocation. They intended to enslave my people and strip our planet. Under council law, we had every right to defend ourselves with any means necessary. And the deception, Ralpos demanded the hidden weapons. Diana turned to him with eyes like frozen steel. We call it survival. You should try it sometime, instead of preying on those weaker than you. She pulled out another data chip and placed it beside the first. This contains evidence of Coalition war crimes on 16 worlds, detailed records, witness testimony, biological samples from mass graves. If this council wants to hold a trial, let's make it a real one. Ralpos backed away from the table, his scales fatting to pale gray. Counselor Breath looked at the data chips, then at Diana, then at the gallery full of watching eyes. This council will take a recess, she announced her voice heavy. We have much to consider. Admiral Brooks sat in the conference room 300 meters below Colorado bedrock, watching real-time feeds from 47 satellites and 30 listening posts scattered across the solar system. The coalition fleet hadn't returned yet, but they would. Predators always came back when wounded, and Ralpos had left with his pride in tatters. Satellite network confirms council. Representatives approaching neutral station. Lieutenant Harris reported from her station. Ambassador Foster is already there. Brooks nodded, his weathered face showing nothing. 50 years in the military had taught him to keep emotions buried deep, but inside he felt something he rarely allowed himself. Pride. They'd done it. Earth had punched back against the galaxy, and the galaxy was still reeling. Sir, we're detecting something unusual, Harris continued. Multiple jump signatures appearing at the rally point where Ralpos retreated. It's not just coalition ships anymore. The display shifted, showing energy readings that made Brooks lean forward. 12 distinct ship classes representing at least 6 different species. The coalition was calling in reinforcements, building a proper invasion force instead of the bullying expedition they'd sent before. Numbers, Brooks asked quietly. Estimating 400 capital ships, maybe 2,000 support vessels. They're forming up in standard siege formation. Harris paused, her young face tight with worry. Sir, they're not planning a quick strike. This time, they're preparing to crack Earth open like an egg. Brooks studied the tactical display. A proper sea meant months of bombardment, waves of assault craft, systematic destruction of infrastructure until nothing remained but surrender or death. The coalition had done this before on worlds that fought back. They were patient when patience meant total victory. Get me the Secretary General, Brooks ordered, and start running evacuation protocols for coastal cities. If they bombard from orbit, that's where they'll start. While Harris made the connections, Brooks pulled up files he'd hoped never to use. Project Scorpion, Project Rubicon, Project Last Light, each one a contingency plan written by men and women who understood that survival sometimes meant making choices that haunted you forever. Admiral, you're connected. Secretary General Wilson appeared on screen, her dark skin showing stress lines that hadn't been there a month ago. Behind her, the emergency bunker in Geneva buzzed with activity. They're coming back, Brooks said without preamble. Bigger, angrier, and smart enough to do it properly this time. How long do we have? 6, maybe 3. They're being methodical, making sure every ship is positioned before they jump. They won't make the same mistakes twice. Wilson closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they held the same resolve Brooks had seen in combat veterans. Look of someone who'd accepted the cost of hard choices. Diana's presenting evidence to the council right now. If she can convince them that the coalition violated contact laws, we might get sanctions, maybe even peacekeepers. And if she can't, then we do what humans have always done. Admiral, we survive. Brooks nodded. I need authorization to activate Scorpion and Rubicon protocols. We can't beat them in a straight fight. Not with those numbers. We need to change the game. Wilson was quiet for a long moment. Both protocols meant taking the fight to coalition space, targeting civilian infrastructure, making the war so costly that even victory would taste like defeat. It was the kind of warfare that made historians shudder and generals vomit. "You have my authorization," Wilson said finally. "But Brooks, if we do this, there's no coming back. We'll be the monsters the galaxy thinks we are. Better a living monster than a dead saint," Brooks replied. "Besides, they came to our home. Everything that happens next is on them." After Wilson disconnected, Brooks sat alone with his thoughts for exactly 30 seconds. Then he became the admiral again, the man who gave orders that sent people to die. "Harris, activate deep Spacecom relay. Baker, I need direct contact with our scout ships in Coalition territory." "Sir, we have scouts in their space." Brooks smiled grimly. "We've had scouts everywhere for 20 years, Lieutenant. How do you think we knew exactly what weapons to build?" The truth was simple and terrifying. While the Coalition had watched Earth's primitive broadcasts and dismissed humanity as backward, Earth had been systematically infiltrating every major galactic power, automated probes, stealth satellites, even physical agents humans modified to pass for alien species in places where biosecurity was lax. The galaxy thought they were the Watchers. They never considered that something from the dark might be watching back. "Contact established with Scout Network Charlie through Tango," Harris reported, her voice slightly odded. "Sir, that's 8 different Coalition systems." "Good. Send activation codes for Operation Rubicon. Every scout ship is now weapons-free to engage targets of opportunity. Priority targets are fuel depots, shipyards, and communication hubs. Make them hurt, make them bleed. Make them choose between invading Earth and protecting their own homes." Brooks pulled up another display, this one showing Earth's defensive grid, orbital platforms, lunar bases, the asteroid belt installations that looked like mining operations but concealed enough firepower to glass a continent, and deeper hidden in the Kuiper belt. Sensors couldn't reach the weapons. Platforms that would make Ralpos wish he'd never heard of Earth. "Sir, message from Ambassador Foster. The Council is in recess. They're considering the evidence and Ralpos requesting immediate military support for a second invasion. He's calling it a police action to restore galactic order." Brooks laughed, a sound without humor. "He still doesn't get it. This isn't about winning a battle. It's about making the cost of victory so high that even winning means losing." He stood up, joints popping after too many hours in the chair. Around him, the operation center hummed with quiet efficiency. Young men and women monitoring sensors, running simulations, preparing for war. They looked confident, these kids who'd grown up knowing Earth might be invaded someday. They had no idea what was coming, what humanity was about to unleash. "Lieutenant Harris, get me tactical planning. We're going to teach the Coalition something their 400 conquered worlds never could." "What's that, sir?" Brooks looked at the display, showing Coalition forces gathering like a storm on the horizon. Soon they would jump. Soon they would come for Earth with everything they had, and Earth would show them why the most dangerous predator was always the one you underestimated. "We're going to teach them that humans don't just fight to win," Brooks said quietly. "We fight to make sure our enemies never ever want to fight us again." Diana Foster walked through the Council Station's observation deck, watching stars drift past the transparent hull. Behind her, counselors argued in 17 different languages, while Translators struggled to keep up. They'd been deliberating for 6 hours, and she could feel the weight of every minute. Her communicator buzzed, Brooks updating her on the coalition's gathering forces. 2 weeks until they struck, maybe less. If Ralpos pushed hard enough. Ambassador Foster. She turned to find Counselor Breath approaching alone, her ceremonial robes replaced with something simpler. The forried alien looked tired, ancient in a way that had nothing to do with age. Walk with me, Brevith said. Not waiting for an answer, they moved through corridors carved from a single asteroid, passing chambers where junior delegates conducted the mundane business of galactic governance, trade disputes, border negotiation, the small concerns of a civilization that thought itself stable. Your evidence is compelling, Brevith said finally. The coalition has committed atrocities we can no longer ignore. Several counselors are ready to vote for sanctions, maybe even military intervention. But Diana prompted, but others fear what you represent more than they fear the coalition. Breath stopped at a viewport showing the vast emptiness between stars. You're a precon species that somehow built a fleet capable of defeating the galaxy's most successful conquest force. You monitored our communications for decades without announcing yourselves. You infiltrated our space, learned our weaknesses, and prepared for war. We prepared for survival, Diana corrected, and that terrifies them, Brevith said bluntly, because it means humanity is capable of patience, deception, and strategic planning on a scale we thought impossible for a species your age. You're not just warriors, you're planners. That makes you dangerous in ways the coalition never was. Diana considered her next words carefully. Breath was offering something here. Information or alliance or warning. Maybe all three. What do you want from us? Diana asked. The truth. How did you do it? How did a species that's barely left its own planet build weapons that countered technology thousands of years more advanced? Diana smiled, thinking of the files Brooks had sent her, the long history of human preparation that the galaxy had never suspected. It started in 2045. She began a radio telescope in Chile, detected a signal. Not just any signal, but a galactic positioning beacon. We realized we weren't alone, and we made a choice. We could announce ourselves and hope for the best, or we could watch and learn first. So you chose deception. We chose wisdom. We listened to your broadcasts, watched your shows, studied your languages, and what we learned terrified us. Brevit's feathers ruffled slightly. What did you learn? That the galaxy operates on strength, that peaceful species get absorbed by aggressive ones, that the council debates while empires expand, that there's no cavalry coming to save anyone. Diana met the counselor's eyes directly. We learned that in this galaxy, you're either a predator or prey, so you became predators. No, we became survivors. There's a difference. Diana pulled up a data pad showing images that made Brev recoil. Every war humanity has fought for the past 80 years has been practice, not against each other anymore, but against you. We ran simulations of coalition tactics, tested weapons against theoretical alien shields, trained soldiers to fight in zero gravity, hostile atmospheres against enemies with different biologies and combat doctrines. You've been preparing for us. Specifically, we've been preparing for everyone, Diana said. We didn't know who would come First, the coalition, the hierarchy, the swarm collective didn't matter. We knew. Someone would come and they wouldn't be asking nicely. Breath was quiet for a long moment, processing implications that clearly disturbed her. You've been watching us fight each other, learning from our mistakes. Yes, every conflict you've broadcast has been a lesson. The Terran War taught us about shield harmonics. The Vorin rebellion showed us how to sabotage FTL drives. The siege of Keller Prime demonstrated orbital bombardment patterns we could exploit. You've been teaching us how to kill you for 8 decades and you never knew it. And the weapons you couldn't have developed those just from observation. Diana hesitated, then decided the truth was safer than speculation. In 2067, something crashed in the Pacific. We salvaged enough intact technology to reverse engineer basic FTL theory. It took 40 years, but we figured it out. Built our own drives, our own shields, then improved on them because we weren't constrained by tradition or existing infrastructure. You stole technology from a crash site and weaponized it. We salvaged technology from a wreck and used it to survive. And before you lecture me about theft, remember that we had no idea if whoever crashed was coming back. For all we knew, they were scouts for an invasion force. We had to be ready. Breath turned away from the viewport, facing Diana fully. There are counselors who want to quarantine Earth, forbid you from leaving your system until you've proven you're not a threat. And how exactly do we prove we're not a threat while locked in our own cage? Diana asked. By rolling over, by trusting the same council that let the coalition conquer 400 worlds, by showing restraint, by not becoming the thing you fear. Diana laughed sharp and bitter. Counselor, restraint is why we're having this conversation instead of burning coalition worlds to bedrock. We could have struck first when we detected Raupose's fleet, could have hit their staging areas and crippled them before they even knew we existed. We didn't. We waited for them to come to us, gave them warning, and only fought to defend our home. And now Admiral Brooks is activating deep space assets in coalition territory, Brevith said quietly. Don't look surprised, Ambassador. We may be slow, but we're not blind. We know your scout ships are moving toward strike positions. Diana felt ice in her stomach, but kept her face neutral. If the coalition is preparing to siege Earth, we have every right to strike at their capacity to do so, even if it means civilian casualties, even if it means you become the aggressors. We didn't start this war, Counselor, but we will finish it. The coalition can withdraw, accept sanctions, and face justice for their crimes, or they can push forward and learn what happens when you back humans into a corner. Breath studied her for a long moment. You know what I think, Ambassador Foster. I think humanity has been preparing for this moment since before we knew you existed. I think you've been waiting for someone to give you justification to show the galaxy what you're really capable of. Think what you want, Diana said coldly, but understand this: Earth won't be prey, not for the coalition, not for the council, not for anyone. We'll cooperate with those who respect us and destroy those who threaten us. The choice has always been yours. She turned to leave, but Breath's voice stopped her. The vote will be close, Ambassador. If you want council support, you'll need to give them something. Proof that humans can be trusted with power. Diana looked back. What kind of Prove, show us restraint, show us mercy. Show us that despite all your preparations for war, you're capable of peace. Diana nodded slowly. I'll talk to Brooks, but Counselor understands something. Mercy is a gift, not a weakness, and it's only offered to those who have earned it. The scout ship Whisper had been drifting in the debris field near the Coalition fuel depot for 11 days, powered down to minimal life support, looking like just another piece of wreckage from the mining accident 3 years ago. Inside, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Woods watched, her sensors with the patience of a hunter who'd been taught to wait. Contact, her co-pilot whispered. Unnecessary in the vacuum, but habit. Died hard. Coalition tanker full load. Inbound to fuel depot. Sarah studied the readings. Standard. Transport, minimal weapons, crew of maybe 20. It would burn beautifully, and the fuel depot would go up like a small sun. One strike with Coalition logistics for this entire sector. Her finger hovered over the weapons release. Whisper actual, this is Scorpion. Command, stand by for priority message. Admiral Brooks' voice came through. Encrypted channels arriving, delayed by distance but clear enough. All Scorpion assets, weapons hold, repeat, weapons hold, new orders incoming. Sarah felt frustration war with relief. She'd been ready to pull the trigger, ready to start the cascade that would bring the Coalition's infrastructure down, but orders were orders. Scorpion Command, Whisper actual confirms. Weapons hold, standing by. The new orders came through 3 minutes later, and Sarah read them twice to make sure she understood. Not a stand-on. Something different, something that made her think maybe the brass knew what they were doing after all. Across Coalition space, 47 other scout ships received the same message. Don't strike, not yet, but let them know you're there. Sarah powered up the Whisperer's communications array, type beam focused directly at the Coalition command station orbiting the gas giant. She didn't encrypt the message, didn't hide. It sent it in clear Coalition military codes that their intelligence would intercept in seconds. Coalition forces. This is Earth Scout Ship Whisper. We have your fuel depot targeted. We have your tanker routes mapped. We have strike packages ready to launch. This is your only warning. Withdraw your seed fleet from Earth immediately, or we will. Your logistics across 17 systems. She sent the message, then powered down. Again, drifting back into the debris. Fields camouflaged, but she left one sensor active, watching the Coalition's response. It came faster than expected. The command station lit up like an angry hornet's nest. Ships launched, patrols activated. Search patterns began, sweeping the area where Whisper had transmitted from, but they were looking for a warship, not a piece of debris. Their sensors passed right over her position 3 times. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Earth's stealth technology was based on making their ships look like nothing worth investigating, not invisible, just uninteresting. It worked beautifully. Whisper actual Scorpion Command. Well done. Maintain position and monitor. Response. Do not engage unless fired upon. Across the galaxy, similar messages were being sent. Earth's hidden assets were revealing themselves just enough to show the Coalition they'd been watched, studied, and targeted, not attacking, not destroying, just promising future pain if the wrong choices were made. It was psychological warfare on a scale the Coalition had never experienced. On the Council station, Diana watched the reports flood in. Coalition command. Channels were in chaos, they'd known. Abstractly that Earth might have intelligence assets, but the reality of 47 ships positioned at strategic choke points across their empire was causing panic. The council is reconvening. An aide whispered, emergency session. The coalition is demanding immediate action. Diana straightened her suit and walked back into the chamber where her fate and Earth's would be decided. Ralpos was already speaking when she entered, his voice pitched high with anger and fear. They have spy ships throughout coalition space. This is an act of war. The council must authorize immediate retaliation. The council will authorize nothing without full deliberation, Counselor. Brevet said coldly. Ambassador Foster, would you care to explain why Earth has armed vessels in coalition territory? Diana moved to the speaker platform, feeling every eye on her. This was the moment. The choice between being feared and being trusted. Brooks had given her the tools to make the coalition bleed. Now she had to decide if mercy was strength or weakness. Earth has maintained observation posts in major galactic powers for 2 decades, she said calmly. We did so because we had no idea if peaceful contact was possible. We needed to know who our neighbors were before announcing ourselves. Observation posts armed with weapons. Counselor Dravix challenged. Scout ships capable of self-defense. Diana corrected. Which have not fired a single shot despite ample opportunity. We could have crippled the coalition's logistics before their siege fleet even formed. We didn't. Instead, we sent warnings. We offered them a chance to withdraw peacefully. You threatened civilian infrastructure, Rollo snarled. We threatened military infrastructure that supports your invasion fleet. Diana shot back. Fuel depots, shipyards, supply lines, all legitimate military targets under galactic warfare conventions. We're following your rules. Commander, don't complain when we do it better than you. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some counselors supported Diana's logic, others feared the precedent. A few seemed genuinely impressed that Earth had managed such deep penetration of coalition space. Breath called for order, her voice cutting through the chaos. The question before this council is simple. Does Earth's defensive posture justify preemptive military action by the coalition? They invaded our space first, Diana reminded everyone. They came to Earth with conquest on their minds. Everything we've done since has been in response to their aggression. And if the coalition withdraws their siege fleet, Dravix asked, what happens to these scout ships? Diana had prepared for this question, had war gamed it with Brooks dozen times. The answer would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy for generations. If the coalition withdraws, our scouts will withdraw as well. We have no interest in empire building or conquest. We want security. We want to be left alone, but we will not be victims. And if they don't withdraw, Ralpos challenged. Diana met his eyes with a calm that came from absolute certainty. Then we will teach you the same lesson you've taught 400 other species, that there are consequences for aggression, that invasions have costs, that sometimes the prey has teeth. She turned to address the full council. Earth offers the coalition a choice. Withdraw your fleet. Face justice for your war crimes under council oversight. Accept sanctions and restrictions on future military actions. Do this and our scout ships will stand down. Our weapons will hold. We will pursue peace And if we refuse, Ralpos demanded, then we will systematically dismantle your military capacity to wage war, not your civilian infrastructure, not your populations, but every shipyard, every fuel depot, every logistics hub that supports your ability to conquer will burn, and when we're done, you won't be able to threaten anyone for a century. The silence that followed was absolute. Breath looked at Ralpos, then at Diana, then at the other counselors. The coalition will have 6 hours to respond. To Earth's terms, this council will reconvene to vote on appropriate actions. Once we have their answer, Diana nodded and left the chamber. She'd done everything she could. Now it was up to Ralpos to decide if his pride was worth his empire. Ralpos stood in his command center, watching displays that showed his empire crumbling, not from human weapons, but from something worse, hope. The subject species were rising. Worlds the coalition had conquered decades ago were suddenly broadcasting demands for freedom. Mining colonies were sabotaging equipment, tribute shipments were being delayed or lost, and worst of all, some of his own commanders were questioning orders. Sir, the council is requesting your response to Earth's terms, his aide reported nervously. Ralpos wanted to rage, wanted to order the siege fleet forward and damn the consequences, but he'd seen the tactical analysis. Earth scout ships weren't bluffing. If he attacked, his empire's logistics would collapse within weeks. His fleet would be stranded without fuel, without supplies, without reinforcements. The humans had beaten him without firing another shot. Prepare a response, he said, each word tasting like ash. The coalition accepts Earth's terms. We will withdraw the siege fleet and submit to council arbitration regarding past military actions. His aide stared. Sir, that's surrender. That's survival, Ralpos corrected bitterly. Send it on the council station. Diana received the message and allowed herself one moment of relief before her professional mask snapped back into place. They'd won not through superior firepower, but through superior strategy. The council reconvened within the hour. Breath looked almost relieved as she read the coalition's acceptance into the record. Other counselors seemed less pleased, uncomfortable with how decisively Earth had handled a crisis the council had ignored for decades. The coalition has agreed to Earth's terms, Brevith announced. This council must now address the broader implication, specifically Earth's status within galactic civilization. Diana had been expecting this. The galaxy couldn't ignore them anymore, and that meant decisions had to be made about humanity's role going forward. Counselor Dravik spoke first. Earth has demonstrated military capacity and strategic thinking that exceeds many established powers. They've also shown concerning willingness to operate in secret. I propose monitored integration with restrictions on military expansion. You mean a cage with better bars? Diana said flatly. We're not interested. Then what do you want? Breath asked. Diana had thought about this answer for weeks. What did humanity want from a galaxy that operated on might makes right principles? We want a seat at the table, she said. Full council membership with all associated rights and responsibilities. We want to help write the laws we're expected to follow. Impossible, several counselors said. Simultaneously, council membership requires centuries of proven peaceful cooperation. The coalition got membership after Conquering 12 species, Diana countered. Don't talk to me about proven cooperation when you reward aggressors and punish defenders. Earth is too young, too volatile, Dravix argued. You've been space-faring for less than a century, and in that time, we've built a fleet that defeated yours, established intelligence networks you never detected, and forced the galaxy's most successful conquest empire to surrender without destroying a single civilian target. Diana said, how many more centuries do we need before we're mature enough for you? The argument raged for hours. Some counselors supported Earth's admission, seeing opportunity in humanity's demonstrated capabilities. Others feared setting a precedent that might inspire other aggressive newcomers. Finally, Brevith called for order. We cannot resolve this today, but we can address immediate concerns. Earth will be granted provisional observer status. Pending full review, your scout ships will withdraw from Coalition space as agreed, and the Coalition will face inquiry into alleged war crimes under Council authority. Observer status, Diana repeated. We can watch but not vote. For now, prove you can work within galactic civilization rather than against it, and full membership will follow. Diana knew that was probably the best she would get. The Council moved slowly in. Forcing the issue would only create enemies. Sometimes patience was a weapon too. Earth accepts provisional observer status, she said, on the condition that the Council investigates Coalition crimes thoroughly and holds them accountable under galactic law. Agreed, Brevith said, looking relieved that the crisis was ending without further bloodshed. The session concluded with formal declarations and procedural votes. Diana played her part, but her mind was already returning to Earth, where Brooks and his people were waiting to hear how humanity's first real contact with galactic civilization had ended. She sent a type beam message before leaving the station. Mission accomplished. Coming home. We're observers for now, but we're in the game. Brooks' response came back minutes later. Good work, Ambassador. The scouts are standing down. Earth defense remains on alert, but we can start transitioning to peacetime protocols. Diana smiled at that. Peacetime after 80 years of preparation and one brief, brutal war. Humanity might actually get to try peace on Earth. Celebrations erupted when the news broke. The sea fleet was withdrawing. The Coalition was facing justice, and humanity had a voice in galactic affairs, even if that voice couldn't vote yet. Admiral Brooks watched the celebrations from his bunker, deep underground, surrounded by the weapons and plans they wouldn't need for years. But they'd stay ready anyway, because that's what humans did. They prepared, they planned, they survived. Sir, all scout ships have confirmed withdrawal from Coalition space, Harris reported. Should we begin decommissioning the deep space assets? Brooks shook his head. Maintain them. Reduce alert status, but keep them operational. The Council might have accepted us today, but the galaxy hasn't changed. There will be others like the Coalition, other empires, other threats. Will we be ready? Brooks thought about the question, about the decades of preparation that had led to this moment, about the choices they'd made and the costs they'd paid. We'll be ready, he said finally, because we're human. Because we learned a long time ago that the universe doesn't care about fair or just, it only cares about who survives. He pulled up a display showing Earth floating in space, blue and green and beautiful. Somewhere up there, the coalition fleet was jumping away, defeated not by superior weapons, but by superior will. They came to our home, expecting easy prey, Brooks said quietly. Instead, they found something they'd never encountered before. Species that fight smarter, plans better, and never ever gives up. Harris nodded. What now, sir? Brooks smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his weathered face. Now we wait, we watch, we learn, and when the next threat emerges, because it always does, we'll be ready to teach them the same lesson we taught Ralpos. What lesson is that? That you can invade Earth if you want, you can bring fleets and armies and weapons beyond imagining. But understand something first. He turned to face her fully. We're not the prey, we're not victims waiting to be saved. We're humans, and we dare anyone to find out what that really means. Across the galaxy, species watched and learned. The council had been challenged and found wanting.